Welcome back to my series of videos where I'm discussing the new Dread Elf army book. So this episode we will look into the core options for the Dread Elves. So the first option we're going to look at is the Dread Legionnaires. These are the old spearmen. So they just have a basic elven profile. They have a spear, and they have the Dread Elf special rule of ruthless efficiency. In addition, they also have academy training. Academy training is a special rule that is quite elaborate. It's a special rule that is on the Dread Legionnaires. That's on the Legion Legate, on the Repeater Auxiliaries, and also on the Obsidian Guard. And there is a magical banner that can allow you to make some infantry in a unit also get academy training. So it's a rule that guides you towards one archetype of the army book, and it gives some interactions between the units that have this special rule, like +1 inch on the charge distance, and also the auxiliaries in specific. They have a small combination that we'll get to later. For now, just the Dread Legionnaires. So your basic Dread Legionnaires is quite a capable combat model in the sense that it has offensive 4, it has lightning reflexes, so it's likely gonna hit the core of other armies on a 2+, because you are quite high on offensive and you have lightning reflexes. Except for targets that have parry, then you're just gonna hit on a 3+ instead. You have strength 3, which is below average by now, I think. Like it used to be kind of average. A lot of choices that are picked by people are often strength 4 nowadays. But ruthless efficiency covers this for the Dread Legionnaires, effectively giving them strength 4 against a lot of targets, and against the high resilience targets they have a bit of an added bonus. Like for example, if you're striking with a Dread Legionnaire with strength 3 against a target with resilience 6, you're still gonna wound on a 5+, because you have the +1 to wound rather than the strength 4. Now you can take this unit in some different formats. You can take a minimal unit of 15 Legionnaires. You can take bigger units, and well, the choices that are presented below are my popular picks, I think. So either you can go for just a minimal unit, just as a scoring dart basically, or in an MSU list. This could also work really well. I think the Legionnaires are also a good unit to put your Crucible of Slaughter in if you want to field one of these, just because they're quite cheap for the bodies that they bring. Alternatively, you can go a bit bigger with like 25 Legionnaires, and then here comes the bit of difficult choice of whether to go 6 wide or 5 wide. 5 wide is going to give you an extra rank for a bit of a longer time. 6 wide is going to give you 4 extra attacks. So the question is whether 6 wide is worth it for the extra 4 attacks. So depending on what you're facing, you might consider going for 5 wide instead to just grind a little bit better. However, the Dread Elf army is not really tailored to grind, because also in your second round of combat you're just gonna drop down to strength 3 instead of strength 4. There is a mitigation in the army for this, which is the Executioner's Icon. The Executioner's Icon is 50 points, so the 25 model unit you could already play with an Executioner's Icon, but I think that if you only have 25 Resilience 3 models with 5 of armor save, you're not gonna use it that much, because in a lot of matchups you're just gonna either win the first round of combat or lose the first round of combat, and it only kicks into play once you have done this first round of combat. By then you're gonna have, well, less Legionnaires left, that's for sure, and whether the +1 strength is then gonna, or the +1 to win is then gonna matter a lot is really a big question. Yeah, so I would still play them as 40 Legionnaires also, and then I would pick the Executioner's Icon, because then you get a lot of revenue out of the banner, and it's also then a unit that offers you something in the army that other units do not. in the sense that it has a lot of bodies, it is able to grind, it is gonna have damage output every single turn. And within the core selection, it is also the one choice that has a decent AP, especially when the enemy charges in. And you can increase this with a Rending Banner. I think a Rending Banner is my go-to pick on a unit of 25, if I have some spare points left for a Magical Banner. And for the big unit, maybe the Executioner's Icon. Maybe if I play a BSB with a Rending Banner or the Executioner's Icon, I would prefer to have both in the unit. Yeah, so that's it for the Dread Legionnaires. The next choice we'll be looking at are the Legion Auxiliaries. They are the crossbowmen of the army. So they got a couple of upgrades and a couple of downgrades. As you can see, they have academy training. They have a special rule of their own, suppressing volley. They still have the same light armor and shield that they used to have. I thought you could choose for the upgrade of the shield, and now it's just in the profile. They do have lightning reflexes, they do have march and shoot, ruthless efficiency, and a repeater crossbow. So the march and shoot is a new addition to this unit. It used to not have this special rule. And it also had a repeater crossbow that only hit on a 4+ instead of a 3+. So in that respect they got way better. But the profile for the repeater crossbow has gotten worse. Yeah, I would say generally just worse. So the range of the weapon has been decreased to 18 inches instead of the 24 that it used to be, to encourage short range shooting. Furthermore, on long range, you'll only have one shot with this weapon. It's gone down in AP to AP 0, so it's like a bow now. But on short range, what you're getting back for this is that you get 3 shots instead of the 2 shots that the weapon used to have on any range. So this is a really interesting unit design-wise, because, well, on long range it's not going to do anything. It's a shooting unit most of all, but its effective shooting range is only 9 inches. It can march and shoot, so the effective range of the unit is 19 inches, because you can march 10 inches and then you can march and shoot. At 9 inches effectively, because then you can only get your 3 shots per model. And 3 shots per model also means that you can just run them 5 wide and get away with it. Because then out of your 10 models, you're going to get 30 shots. After you marched, it's going to be hitting on 4+, because you get the -1 for moving. So 30 shots hitting at 4+, that is quite impressive. But for the short range shooting to be effective, you're gonna have to have this kind of damage output in the situation that it works, because you're taking this unit as a shooting unit, as a support unit to support your army. You cannot do this thing where you have, like, for example, normal crossbowmen that sit in the back of the army, that first turn shoot off a volley, kill some guys, second turn still get to shoot, third turn probably still get to shoot, and then from the fourth turn onwards it's becoming a little bit less of an obvious thing that they will be able to shoot at a target. Now the Legion Auxiliaries, they can choose a little bit better what they're going to shoot at, because they can march 10 inches in any direction and then still shoot. And then the repeater crossbows, at short range they are really effective. At long range they don't do anything, because then you also get the long range penalty. You're going to hit on a 5+ with your 10 shots. Because you are going to move with this unit. This unit is never going to sit around just staying there to shoot. Because the only situation in which it would be beneficial for this unit to just not move and shoot would be if the enemy is already within 9 inches and didn't do anything about the Legion Auxiliaries in the previous turn. And it is really worth it as an opponent to do something with this unit to make it go away if it is within 9 inches of one of your units. You have to keep in mind also that in a lot of cases this unit will end up within 8 inches actually of an opposing unit, because the second rank also wants to fire, and in a lot of situations it's kind of tricky to make it so that all of your units are out of 8 inches, but or out of your models. All of your models are out of 8 inches but within 9 inches. So it's quite reliable for your opponent to get the charge off, even with a unit that only has an advance of 4 inches. If they have a champion, then they are going to get into your Legion auxiliaries. So it's a frontline unit that doesn't want to be fighting too much. Yet the defense that it still has is that it can also still stand and shoot if it's being charged by a unit that has an advanced move of less than the range that they're standing at. So the funny thing here is that if you're marching them up and the opponent has a unit at 10 inches and a unit at 8 inches, and he charges you first with a unit at 10 inches, then you don't really have a good response to this, because then the opponent is going to be at long range. At long range, you only have one shot per model. You're going to suffer from the -1 to hit from long range and from the standard shoot. So once again, you're just hitting on 5s. You're not going to do anything, and likely your opponent is still going to get into your unit. So basically, they can practically only target the unit that is kind of closest to them, and this is something that that you as an opponent can also make use of. So, for example, if you have some trolls and some orc archers or crossbowmen, it might be valuable to just march up the trolls a little bit further than your crossbowmen, because the trolls are quite resilient to their shooting. Because you still are gonna have your resilience 4, which helps. You have your 4-up armor save, you have a 4-up regen save. So for every 4 wounds that the Legion Auxiliaries are gonna do, you're only gonna lose 1 wound on your trolls. Yeah, so that is this unit. It also still has suppressing volley. Suppressing volley, so at the start of each charge phase, if you have this unit with 1 full rank at least, you can nominate a unit within 18 inches of the unit. And then the nominated enemy unit suffers -1 to hit against charging academy trained units. So that is, it looks really impressive. I have managed to pull it off once in a battle, I believe. And that was because we were in turn 5 and everything was just mixed around in the battlefield. And then you can pull this off. But there's a lot of counterplay to this mechanic. So the start of your turn, you have to be within 18 inches with your Legion Auxiliaries of the target that you want to charge with a friendly academy trained unit. That is one condition. So your opponent can just neglect this by either blocking the line of sight of the Legion Auxiliaries, or by just not being within 18 inches of these guys. So for example, you can charge them and then see what happens, and then, well, if they flee, then, well, they're not going to be able to nominate anything. If they're not going to flee, then they're going to be in combat. So that's one way to counter these Legion Auxiliaries. The other way is to put a unit in front of them, in front of some other academy trained unit, that you can target with suppressing volley, sure, but then once the academy trained unit charges against your unit, you're going to flee with your unit. Well, in that case, the -1 to hit also doesn't really apply anymore. And yeah, in the end, it's really a situational rule. It's not a rule that you should build your army around, I feel, because in the end, it's only a -1 to hit. You can stack it with the -1 to hit that the Temple Legates give to their friendly models with Blades of Darak in their unit. So that is quite interesting. It only works, though, I believe, on academy trained units. I don't know how it works with Crucible of Slaughter, because you cannot get that to become academy trained. So probably if you have a Crucible of Slaughter in your unit, but you do have the academy trained banner, the academy banner on your unit, you're gonna need more than 15 models to count for academy trained with your unit, I think, but I'm not sure about that. In the end, it's a really cool design. It really works against models that don't have a lot of armor, because, well, on the flanks, for example, if you just have some heavy infantry, like 20 heavy infantry of the Empire, you're gonna march up to them. You're gonna shoot 40 shots of 4+. It's 15 hits. It's 8 wounds, 7 wounds, 8 wounds. After armor saves, that's like 5 wounds. Sure. And then in the Empire turn, they're gonna charge in. You're gonna do the same, so you're gonna do another 5 wounds. So you have 10 guys that come in. At that point, you still strike first with your elves, with lethal strike, with ruthless efficiency. I mean, with offensive 4, with lightning reflexes. So you're likely gonna hit on 2+ if the opponent has spears or halberds. So let's say you hit on 2+ and you wound on 3+, so that's another 6 wounds more or less. So by the time that the enemy strikes, you're gonna have removed 15 of his heavy infantry. So in that situation, this unit really kills the enemy. Yet if you're facing cavalry, this unit literally doesn't do anything, just because of the AP0 on everything. So you have to hope for a lucky roll. Or an unlucky roll for your opponent to get this unit to work, because in the grind it's also not that good. You don't have a lot of moddies, and you don't have the AP. I tried running it also with a Crucible of Slaughter, and it doesn't really work. Because the reason I did it was because, well, suppressing volley gives you still the option of nominating something within 18 inches. And then if you put the Crucible of Slaughter in, then you upgrade the fighting potential of this unit. Yet it doesn't really become that interesting still to buff your Strength 3 AP0 Legion Auxiliaries if you have some other buffs, some other units that you can buff. So it does counterplay against the Crucible of Slaughter a bit. Interesting units for this is, well, the 15 Legion Auxiliaries, just minimum size. Musician is nice, the champion is nice to have, just to stay steadfast against characters. 21 Legion Auxiliaries is also an option. You can run them 7 wide and have a bit more ranks. I think it's a nice option on the flanks to just get a little bit more shooting output. But I think I would just stick to the small unit of 15 and not field them anywhere near 25 models. Because as a combat unit, they don't really perform that well. Even though they can still be a bit of a tar pit in the army with academy trained. So discounting a rank of the opponent with parry. Yeah, they can still hold your line for a turn or two, and for the price that they're at, it's not even that bad. But we'll see how this develops in the future. I could imagine that the additional models are even going to be a bit cheaper than the 13 points per model. Then we get to the raiding party. So the raiding party has to choose one of the upgrades, which is either the Beastbreaker or the Corsairs. If they take Corsair, then they are going to counter Raiders. Raiders is capped to 900 points in the army, so you do compete quite strongly against the Legionnaires, the Legion Auxiliaries, sorry. The Shadow Riders that we will discuss a bit later. And also the Raven Cloaks that will, or the Black Cloaks that will be in the next video. So that is a bit of a bummer for the unit, because they only have throwing weapons, so they don't really contribute that much against raiders. I would not be surprised if in the future this raider count is going to disappear, or the throwing weapons from the Corsairs are going to disappear, because this currently holds them back from being included in the army to a considerable amount. Well, what else does this unit offer? So it has hunting bolas, which means that the flee distance of your opponent is going to be minimized. It has light troops, which is really interesting on any core unit. So the Dread Elf Army book doesn't have fast cav in units of 5 in core anymore. It used to have this, and it was a staple of the army. It doesn't have it anymore, but instead you do get this unit that can march 10 inches as light troops. And I think it's befitting for an infantry-focused army to have a unit that can do this. You have light armor, you have lightning reflexes, ruthless efficiency. If you take Beastbreaker, then you get cannot be stomped, which is interesting. You do get a shield. So you do get parry also, and you can choose another unit within 8 inches of that unit that gets devastating charge hatred on the charge. But it's only the model parts with harnessed. So think cold ones, think dragons, manticores, pegasus. I think it's going to be mostly interesting for for either a dragon or for cold knights, because then you have suddenly hatred on your cold ones. It's mostly just to guarantee that you will hit, rather than important that you get the 2 extra hits from the cold ones. So they can upgrade the damage potential of the harnessed model parts a little bit, but I don't think that is why you would take them. It also interacts quite nicely with the Thunder Pack, because the Thunder Pack, they have offensive 3, I believe, with strength 5, 3 attacks each. They are also harnessed, so you can give them hatred, and that is probably quite interesting. Now, the reason why this unit is particularly interesting is not that much about the Corsair upgrade, because of the radar count. It's mostly because, you can get 10 guys with light armor and a shield for 170 points, which is quite okay, with light troops. So you can just put your wizard in here and use it as a bunker, and then you practically have a skirmishing unit that can protect your mage. They are still kind of okay against monsters. I mean, you still have like 8 attacks if you have a 50mm base monster charging into you. You are going to strike first, you are going to hit on a 2+ likely, you're going to wound on a 5+. So there is going to be like 2 wounds with AP 0, unfortunately. So you can do a couple of wounds on a monster in the first round of combat, and after that it just plummets. I have been thinking about running just 20 of them, of the Corsairs, with a banner of the Relentless Company. Corsairs, they turned out to be quite sturdy in the previous edition, even though their stats weren't as impressive, but the paired weapons with the +1 to wound and lightning reflexes and ignore parry really works. But then you have light troops now, so you're not going to break enemy units. It could be interesting. So with the banner of a Relentless Company, you can charge 15 inches. You have throwing weapons that you can throw after that. You are light troops, so you can adjust your formation, so you can get these 40 shots in if you want to. And then afterwards, you're threatening the flank probably somewhere. The question is this worth 400 points? I don't know. It's also 400 points that tap into your radar count. Yet still, if you combine it with 2 units of Legionnaires auxiliaries, where you spend 500 points total, then you can just fill out nicely your radar cap. However, the only thing I only noticed just now is that you cannot actually give this unit a banner enchantment, so you would need a BSB in this unit in order to pull this off, which kind of downgrades this build quite a bit. So I would just for now stick to the 10-man squad of raiding party just as a mage bunker, and we'll see what the lab development still brings us in the future. Next choice in the book would be the Temple Militants. These used to be the Blades of Nab and the Dancers of Yema. They have combined them now into this choice. So the Temple Militants, they are fearless, they are frenzy, and they are scoring. And then in terms of offensive capabilities, they do have battle focus, fight an extra rank, lightning reflexes, ruthless efficiency, and the Blades of Darak. So the Blades of Darak, I believe we discussed them already in the previous video. Basically what it does is that for every 1 turn spell affecting the unit gets +1 strength for the rest of for the duration of the spell. This means that casting like Word of Iron on a 5+ on this unit is still kind of interesting, because it also gives you +1 strength. Yeah, it's a cool unit, I think. It seems a little bit expensive, maybe, for what you get, because in the end you're only getting Resilience 3 elves with light armor, and that's it. And offensively, you don't have any AP once again. just AP 0. So this is something that comes back in the core choices quite strongly. That the only core choice that has some decent AP are the Dread Legionnaires, which is the reason why you would include them in your army. However, if you do a lot of wounds anyway, then it doesn't really matter if the AP is not that good against most targets. You can upgrade the AP with a Rending Banner, of course. You can also upgrade it with a Warsmith in the unit, and the interaction of a Warsmith with a Rending Banner is quite nice, because the Warsmith rule triggers if the opponent has armor 4 or more, and the Rending Banner comes after that. So if you have a unit with a 3-up armor save, the Warsmith rule says that the opponent has to reroll armor saves against models with Blades of Darak in the unit, in your unit. So, and then the Rending Banner comes on top, so you kick up the armor save of your opponent to a 4-up, and it has to be rerolled. So then suddenly, basically, you're working with something that has a bit better than AP2. But that is only in the special case of a 3-up armor save on your opponent. If you're looking at something that starts out with a 1-up armor save, it's going to go to a 2-up armor save that has to be rerolled. So yeah, it's still not going to do too much probably. Even though you are gonna dish out quite some attacks. So Blades of Dara give you an extra attack. If you just field the small unit of 15 militants, they can all strike you to fight an extra rank. So you'll have a total of 21 attacks with battle focus, with offensive 4 lightning reflexes. But you have to mind that you don't ignore parry with this unit. So a reroll to hit spell would be still quite valuable on this unit to get in those extra hits that you would want. Yeah, so this unit of 15, 275 points. Probably if you stack it up against just a unit of I don't know, goblins or heavy infantry, it's gonna lose in the end because, well, it's not gonna go through it in one round, and it will suffer from the fact that it only has defensive 3, only light armor, so you will get some kills back. They are quite vulnerable, but they are quite killy also if you give them the correct upgrades. So either I would go for the 21 militants with full command and a Rending Banner, or for the 30 militants with the Rending Banner. Likely, if you are going to invest in the unit, you're also going to put a Temple Legate in it, and then the Temple Legate can take probably the Academy Banner if you're running some Academy units, just to trigger all of the special rules and maybe use one of them in the battle. Other interesting choices for banners, yeah, Banner of Speed could be interesting, but then again, the Academy Banner also gives you the +1 inch on the charge range. So probably you would want to just take an Academy Banner. And other choices, yeah, I don't think you would want to put Aether Icons on this unit for magic resistance. Because your opponent is not going to cast any hexes on them, likely, because they get the +1 strength from the hexes that are being cast on them. You don't need the Banner of Discipline, you don't need the Relentless Banner because you already have March 10. Well, you could use the Relentless Banner, but yeah, whether it's really necessary. I think if you really want extra mobility for your infantry right now with Red Elves, then the Mist Leviathan is a really good pick. Yeah, then you still have, with the Temple Militants, the most important basically is the choice whether to go for the Warsmith, Temple Legate, or the Battle Oracle if you're fielding a bigger unit. I feel like the Warsmith helps out the unit a bit more, but the Battle Oracle supports a bit better with the spells. Then again, you can take, I think if you are going to take a big unit of Temple Militants, just take 2 of them, fill out your core with these guys, take 2 Temple Legates, 1 on Warsmith, 1 on Divination, and just see where it brings you. even though the unit of 15 Temple Militants is still a really interesting choice. Just like with the other units, I think the units are priced correctly in the sense that it's interesting to take a lot of these small units, and it's also interesting to take a lot of just big chunks of units. Well, you're gonna get less of them, but I think the pricing is about right. The last choice that is available for the core of the army are the Shadow Riders. They come in special, but if you take a unit of 8 or more models, then they count towards core instead of special. So you can field them in the smallest unit size, but then you are gonna need something else to fill your core. Shadow Riders, they used to be the Dark Raiders. They still have just the horses and the rider on top. So basically the profile has stayed the same. The only change is that they lost Killer Instinct and they got Ruthless Efficiency now instead. And they standard come with a light armor shield and armor 1. So they start out with a 4-up armor save. They still got their Vanguard, they still got light troops, still got faint flight. They also have hunting bolas now. And the hunting bolas, they help with catching anything that's going to flee away from them. So that is a really nice upgrade. It's a really cool unit to play on the flanks. Also the fact that they have Ruthless Efficiency now with a light lens practically takes them up to strength 5 on the charge, which is quite impressive. So they're really a fast attack unit now instead of just a unit of fast cavalry. They have to make their kills, however, in order to make the enemy flee, because they don't have any ranks due to light troops. So there's different ways, different avenues you can take with this unit, and I think that is really interesting. So either you can take 8 Shadow Riders, or you can just take the extra 2 models and go up to 10. I think if you're going to go for a combat unit, then you might as well just go for 10 Shadow Riders. If you're going to go for the unit with crossbows, 8 might still be interesting. I don't know. I mean, you can also just take 10 of them and get a little bit more shooting out of the unit, as you're going to go for the shooting anyway. And your footprint is too big for a fast cav unit anyway. So I tried these units back when the repeater crossbow still had 2 shots, yet with AP1. The shooting is quite impressive, and it's going to be even more impressive now. It's 3 shots at long range, at that short range, because these guys are going to be at short range at all times, and they're also not too afraid of getting countercharged. With 10 attacks from the riders and 5 attacks from the horses, imagine if you put a character in there. Then you can really go to town with these units. I believe, however, that there's no single character choice in the Dark Elf roster that has access to a mount with light troops. So if I'm right, that means that if you put a model in there, that you're gonna lose your light troops on the unit, which is obviously not really a bonus for the unit. The only mount for the Dread Elves that has light troops is the Black Mane Pegasus. You could add that to the unit, yet the base doesn't fit with the rest of the unit. So it's gonna stand at the side of the unit, and it's gonna be able to you're gonna be able to single it out with shooting. Alternatively, you can first move the unit and then join the character to it, but then the next round you will suffer from the fact that you don't have light troops, I believe. But I would have to check that. Still, it's an interesting unit, and possibly still, if you just run it with a BSB in there and you really focus on the combat aspect of the unit, it might not be too bad that you don't have light troops if your opponent doesn't realize it, because that's going to make a big difference probably. Yeah, so I think that in core they are quite interesting. In special they are only interesting if you haven't filled out your core with raiders yet. And I think in the video that we focus on the special choices, we're gonna discuss a little bit more the differences between these guys and the Black Cloaks, because they both count towards raiders and they both got kind of the same shooting output. So we'll discuss those here. I have given a sample core setup with Shadow Riders, with crossbows, so you can go nearly full Shadow Riders with some Legionnaires in there, and then you got to 1130 points. The reason why you can only take units of 9 Shadow Riders with repeated crossbows is because of the cap of Raiders. So there's a 900 point cap on Raiders, so if you take 3 times 9 Shadow Riders, you completely maxed out the Raiders. It's still something I want to try though, because it in the past it worked quite well with just units of 5 riders, just to create a really fluid army, and I think that's not really possible anymore because of this cap. And because of the fact that your footprint is just getting too big with these units, you can't really use them as fast cavalry anymore, in the sense of just fleeing, rallying, and etc. So yeah, it's an interesting unit. It's, in my opinion, it's a shame that the avoidance aspect of the Dread Elves have been kind of killed with this. But there's probably still ways in which you can pull it out, pull it off, but then with infantry, maybe instead of with cavalry. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. I think the special section I'm going to divide up in 2 videos later. But yeah, we'll see what how it's going to come out. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you the next time.